So, hello and welcome everyone to another session of Lean Agile Network, or as we want to call it, LAN. We are glad to have you here. Today we have Zuzi as our speaker, which she's coming all the way from Prague here. Zuzi is world-renowned speaker, and she wrote one book, which you might have read the book, a Scrum Master book, and she wrote a new book called The Agile Leader. It's out there, and she was kind enough to share with us a code that gives you, I guess, 40% off if you buy the book directly from the publisher, Inform IT. It's not yet on Amazon.ca for you guys that wanted to know. So Zuzi is a certified Scrum trainer, and I guess from 2005 she was in the space. Zuzi, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm very fortunate to be learning from her these days myself. And she's coming, as I said, from Czech, Prague. What else? A little bit about Lean Agile Network. We get together every month or sooner. This is last month that we get together. It was our fourth year anniversary. So it was nice. Thank you all for the support. Thank you for coming in and helping us get better and better. So we have all these ways for you guys to connect with us on Slack, on Twitter, on Meetup, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. Please connect with us and help us grow the community and make it a better one. I have Wayne here that he's helping with me. He has the same background, and Yasmin as part of our leadership team that they help us. So if you need anything, let us know or put it in the chat. And with all that being said, I'm going to hand it to Zuzi to talk about agile leadership, how to change the world of work with Zuzi.
All right, so I'll share my screen so you see the presentation. And here it is. So, agile leader, right? As Sachin was already saying, I finished 2 books. One is a great Scrum Master, the practical guide for all who want to improve their teams and organizations. Yoo-hoo, right? You might know that. And the other one just left the printer in about a day ago, so it's still not fully shipped to all the Amazons, etc. And that's the Agile Leader. So today I will share a few stories from that book because it's new and because that's part of the things I like to talk about. So if you're interested about anything in the meantime, feel free to ask me, right? There is a chat, so you can send a chat message, and I'll keep it open somewhere so I start to monitor. So if you ask something, I might respond, or at the end we have a conversation. So I want to start with a story, right? How it all started. So one summer afternoon in 2010, I was given 3 departments of developers, testers, and hardware guys. And I was asked to form a new single department of engineering from them. The department with a high collaboration, flexibility, and also the ability to build cross-functional teams across those domains. And I was asked to come up with my own idea. How do I want to run my new department next week? Like, what are the managers specifically? And I went home, sit in the garden, and think about it. The image of 100 people coming to me every day with questions, with requests, with approvals. Can you tell me what shall I do? Can you tell me what to do next? Can you give me your advice? Can you approve my vacation? It was overwhelming. I was tired even before I started. It felt like a weather before a storm. And I started to think about the names and hierarchies because I thought maybe I should just stop fighting this system all the time. Maybe I should just do it the same way as people usually do it, right? But the next day brought a new energy, and I got the courage finally to present later that week a very different structure of self organizing teams with only scrum masters and no managers. Now, to give you a little context, our chairman was an older man over his 60s, low voice, no hair, typical traditional manager with a hierarchy, you would say hard coded in his DNA. He was always wearing a suit, keeping a distance, an aura that he is always right. And so next week, I was back with my presentation, right? I was excited, but also nervous. But he was clearly in a good mood, sitting in front, making jokes. And then he started the meeting, saying, like, let's start with the engineering structure. We need to know who you choose to be the management roles. I was like, management? I don't have any management there. What should I do? Right? And then all those thoughts in your head at the same time. And then I said, okay, started my presentation. And then I said, well, you asked me to come up with my own vision, how I want to run this new department. So let me first summarize the goals we need to achieve: the higher flexibility, the fast learning environment, and still delivering some innovations. Is that correct? And they know this. So I take a deep breath and continue. So I did a research about the similar companies and came up with a flat structure based on self-organizing teams with no management in the department. And I almost didn't finish that sentence. With no management, he said. Yes, no management, because no management is actually an enabler for empowerment and motivation and creativity in the department, which emerge from agile structures. So you want to make us all agile, huh? Yes. Let's try that. After all, we said we need to change. We want to be a modern organization which attracts young people, and actually I don't remember the rest. We were on our agile journey. And to be really honest, I still don't really know what makes him to say yes to my crazy idea of a flat hierarchy and self-organizing teams, because he's been fighting with it the entire time I was in that organization. It was against his personality, it was against his beliefs, and he just couldn't digest it. But I think really the one reason why it went through was because I link it back to the strategic goals. I didn't say we want to be agile because it's cool. I said it because we need the flexibility and innovations and fast learning. Right? So here's my tip number one. If you ever want to change in the organization, think about why. Because agile is not your goal. It's just a way how you might achieve some of your more strategic goals, but not a goal by itself. And that might be one of the most common reasons of failure, which I see in the organizations. So many organizations are changing just because they believe that agile is better. It's new, it's cool. They somewhere lost the real reason why, right? So now, why do we speak about this whole agile all the time? We didn't speak about it 50 years ago. We didn't speak about it 100 years ago. So why now? What's the difference? So here is what happened to the world, right? How the world changed. And at the beginning, it was very individual era style. In one city, you have one restaurant, one shop, one hotel. People work at their own fields. They didn't need each other. It wasn't changing that much. And then something changed. It was simple. It was predictable. People likes it. And then it changed, right? And the industry era came in. All those machines, cars. The guys from the previous era, they didn't like it. They've been even breaking those machines. They were not happy about it. They think it will go away. But to be really honest, how many of you are still using horses for travel? How many machines or robots do you have at home? Do you have a cell phone? Right? The world changed. It became faster, more complex. And then it changes again. And we've got the globalization. You can buy oranges from California and in here in the Czech Republic, right? In the middle of winter. You can buy anything. You can get any services you want. It doesn't really matter where you've been based. It's more important which brand you are. Are you global or not? Can you make a big impact? The first time I hear about globalization, it was my MBA. And, living in a small Czech Republic, it was not a big topic for us. But those British teachers, they've been speaking all the time about globalization. That is an important trend. And I was like, I don't really get it. Some companies like Microsoft are global, but the rest. And now look at me. Jane says that, I'm one of the certified Scrum trainers, but I have my business pretty internationally. I've been traveling around the world delivering classes in every different continents, 2 continents per month, at least 2 countries per week. That was my usual schedule. That was pretty global. And then the world changed again. And there was the internet, which makes it even faster. So no matter where you live, no matter where you're based, no matter where you sit right now in the middle of mountains somewhere in China, if you have a good idea, the only difference is are you connected to the internet, and then the entire world can know about it. And that's pretty frustrating because before that, it was important where is your office. Currently, my office is actually right over here. Wherever this device is my office. I don't need any sign. I don't need any specific room. But the first time I hear about really the power of the internet, like I still remember that. One of my colleagues from university, he asked me, like, do you want an email address? And I was saying, like, why do I need an email address? Like, no, but he was so enthusiastic. So I said, yes, of course I do. He was, oh, it's so great. You now can have your own. And I was like, yes. Why do I need an email address? But still, I said yes, so I have it. Now, can you imagine your life without an email address? Well, I can't. I actually do all my business over email, right? And now we even teach and deliver all the classes and coaching and meetings and conversations over the internet. But the world is more complicated, quite complex, and changing even more faster. So, what's next? Who knows, right? Well, the COVID came and shifted even to the more less predictable thing and less predictable era, closer to chaos. But now we're back at very unpredictable situation. Most of us don't know how it's gonna look like next month. What's the business gonna be? Who knows, right? So, but the biggest thing is the complexity growth of the entire business, of the entire space. So I have a few queries for you. So if you can go to menti.com and put this code 527854, and I will open the second screen where you see the code on the top still, but you can also see the results. And if you go there and say, how complex is your business? Is it simple or predictable? Or is it more like complex and unpredictable? Where do you think is your current business environment? And you see people start answering. Currently, everybody here feeling it's quite complex. So when I do this exercise in-house for like executive teams in organizations, for past 2 years, if I do it with leadership teams, I have the average similar to you guys. The lowest numbers around 7, accidentally 6, but most of them somewhere 8, 9, and sometimes 10. On the other hand, when I do the same exercise with teams, they are much lower. They say, no, it's predictable. So today I was doing the same query with one of my classes. And on average, they've been on 6. They've been saying, no, we don't see much complexity. It's not that bad. That's interesting. Now, seeing the results here, right? We are at 8.2. So I would say if you have 5 as a sort of your mark, then you should be interested about Agile because it's too complex already. There is no way you can plan it and do it on a long time frames. The world is too dynamic, too complex, too unpredictable. When you're 7 and more, I think there is a last minute to become agile. Maybe your last minute is over already. If you're not agile already, at least a bit, you might not be here soon after. So it's quite a sense of urgency. So going back to the presentation, right? That thing is exactly what changed, right? So that's my last presentation, by the way, for a different group of managers. Their average was 7.9. So that's why Agile, right? Now, what is really Agile here? And I'm quite sure you all think you know your answer. So I'm not stopping here too long, but I want to point you towards the modern Agile of Joshua Kirevsky because I tend to like it. Why? Because it's accessible for people who didn't grow up from software development industry, right? The people who were software developers, who still are, or who are at least working with a software organization, they like Agile Manifesto because it's speaking their language. But if you try to present a Agile Manifesto to marketing people, finance people, HR people, for example, they say like, no, 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 that's not for us. That Agile is only for those developers, not for us. And they leave mentally. So I come up with this model as more useful for the other functions of the organization because it doesn't speak the software language. It actually have quite general language. So what Joshua Krivsky says, the first segment here is make people awesome. And by awesome, we mean the Californian awesome. Make them all successful and content and happy and feeling good about themselves. And by people, we mean customers, employees, shareholders, all together, right? All of them. It's not just about one group, it's about all of them. So make people awesome. Then how we work, we experiment and learn. So I was speaking about this topic recently in one big bank. And when I say experiments, they start to be a bit nervous. And then I told them, when you experiment, it means 2 out of 10 experiments are only successful. The rest will fail. Only 2 out of 10 will be successful. And then you see the fear in their eyes. And it was like, no, 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 you can't do it in this organization. We have to be successful as single initiative. Now, how likely they're going to embrace agility? Well, they don't. Because you need to be able to take failure as a good thing, because it's an opportunity for you. It's an opportunity for growing, for becoming better, right? So those experiments, can you experiment? Can you do step by steps? Can you learn from failures? And then on the right hand side, deliver value. It's all about value. And again, go back to your organization and ask, what is the value we are delivering? Depends. Sometimes you learn there is a value, but sometimes you learn, well, I'm writing some code here, but I'm doing this documents here. Value? What do you mean by value, right? Sometimes. Depends. And then finally, safety is a prerequisite because if you don't have high enough safety to make a failure, for example, to take a step back, then you're never going to be agile. There is no one way how to become agile anyway. It's not a process, it's a mindset. So make people awesome, experiment and learn from failures, be safe so you can make those failures and deliver value. That's all in my mind what Agile is about. And that concept actually is much easier to explain the rest of the organization who is not software driven or development centric. So I guess I have a new, it's the same code. So once I switch this, let me see how to do that. Here it is. So which one is strongest in your organization? Right? Does it make people awesome, or is it safety as a prerequisite, or is it learning from experiments, or is it delivering value? Which one is strongest in your organization? Hmm. Half of you delivering value. Well, that's a good thing. And 30% safety, that's good as well. I'm a bit surprised by those experiments, but you know, there are no good or bad results. So, as you see, you're not that different from my previous group. 55% of the value delivery. It's becoming quite common what people say here. So now let's have a look, right? Traditional organization. That's my artistic picture of a traditional org chart with the hierarchy and all those managers, etc. Right? So that's very old started, at least in the past, if not now, right? Depending on how far are you on your journey. And then you start by experimenting, right? Taking some experiments with a team spirit, self-organization. Sometimes you try Kanban, some place you try Scrum, some other place something else, right? And you learn from those failures and you experiment, you become better, like those bubbles, right? And sooner or later, those things will become bigger and more common and even more common, etc. Until finally, the whole organization is full of those bubbles. But actually, that structure, that org chart, that hierarchy is still in place. So it's like a washing machine. It's like moving and moving and moving and completely disconnected from each other. So that's what is called transformation, right? And it's not a nice place to be at, but actually, it's inevitable. You can't avoid it, right? It just doesn't work. So the most common question I got on our journey was actually who is responsible. So the chairman for my story, he was always like coming in to me and saying like, who is responsible? And I was like, oh my God, again this question. And then I was trying, saying like, well, at the end of the day, the team is responsible, you know, they're self-organizing and they make their own decisions. And he was like, no, 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 no. The team can't be responsible. That's not possible. I was like, okay, well, then I'm responsible. You know, we have a flat structure. I'm one of the few directors, so I guess I'm responsible. You know, you can't be responsible for everything. So there was this complete disconnect of the two worlds. And finally, when you keep trying and don't give up, eventually those yellow dots and those black dots click together. And the whole thing is like calm day. It's quiet and harmony, and everything is still moving and trying to find a balance. but it's not a washing machine anymore. It's just like calm wind flying around. So we came up with an agile organization, right? It's a collaborative, creative, and adaptive network. I try to explain this in many different ways. I come up with two different metaphors. I started with this collaborative, creative, adaptive network, but it doesn't stick with people. So I was like, what should I tell about it better? Because it is a collaborative network, but they don't know how to imagine this. So I went to the metaphors and saying it's a living organism. You can imagine that organization is adaptive, right? So imagine you go outside, it's a winter in a t-shirt. Your immediate feedback from the environment is it's cold. Then you use your brain and say, hey, I have few options here. I can go back and take a coat and try it again. Maybe I can run. If I run, I might not be that cold. Maybe I'll just survive. I become stronger, right? Who knows? Maybe you become stronger. Maybe you die because it was too much, right? It's an adaptive thing. It will learn through the generations, through the time. And it didn't work that well as I anticipated either. So then I end up with this metaphor of big tanker boat, which I took from Steve Denning's presentation, which actually works quite well. So you can imagine a traditional organization as a big tanker boat, a big, huge ship with one captain on the top giving the orders and the others following those. It's very effective. It's fast, but it's actually not fast on changing the directions all the time. So agile organization, on the other hand, is very different. It's like a flotilla of small boats. They have the same mission, the same purpose for existence, same reasons, but not the centralized leadership anymore. They have their own autonomy. They make their own decisions. Are we going this way or that way? And they help each other as well. They don't fight against each other. They are like a kids, when they have this big game, the blues against the reds. The blues should steal the flag from the reds camp. They go to the island with many boats trying to find a way. If one boat failed, they tell the others, hey, be aware, they are over there, or over there are rocks, or there is a wind, right? They support each other. They're not completely independent in isolation. They have all those links around, but they are actually centralized, picked around the one strong evolutionary purpose they all own. And if that purpose is not strong enough, then they actually go different directions. Say, yeah, we should be fighting for that flag, but that's not for us anymore. We don't care about this. We go fishing. Yeah, we go better swimming over there, right? And they go to all different directions. So that's purpose is key. If you don't have it strong enough at your organization, Agile will not work for you. So you better find it out and co-create it. Finally, my second tip, leaders need to change first. The organization will follow. However, I need to give you a disclaimer here. How do I read this word leaders? Because leadership is a state of mind. You are all the leaders, all of you. Every single one here is a leader. It's your own decision. Do I want to take the ownership and responsibility and step back and say, I'm going to do this change, and I'm going to start this initiative? Will you help me? How are you going to support me? Do you think is it a good idea? But will you speak up and stand up and take the ownership and responsibility? That's what leaders do. So the leaders need to change first, and then the organization will follow. So the first step is how can you help the other leaders to grow, right? And that was very difficult, at least for me at the beginning. I have this big vision, this big dream of collaborative environment. I felt like we don't need those managers. It's all about self-organization. But to do self-organization on a team level and to actually do it at the organizational level, There is a big step, even if that organization is not that huge. It was a mental step in my head because when things go difficult, and they always went, I can't go back to my original habits and tell people what to do because that would be against me building that leadership in that organization and that self organization. So I have to step back and felt like I can't do it. I have to give them a space to figure it out. I have to give them the opportunity so they fail and learn from failures. I can't decide for them. And that was very tough. I wouldn't say I did everything right. I didn't. I make a lot of failures there and I step back and tell them what to do. But then I usually realize it always take us several steps back. So it was expensive because the only thing you really need to have is consistency. Because if you want to build that culture, you need to be consistent. You need to be the first who is showing them how that culture looks like. What does that even mean? And it is about culture. So at the end of the day, I realize I'm speaking about agile cultures from the early beginnings. My first talk at the conference was about culture. And I still felt like I'm missing the right explanation. And then I found this picture. I came up with this visualization of a clam, right? This sea creature. It has those two halves going out and click, and out and closer, and out and the back clicks, right? Like this. But if you put them far away, the organization will die because the culture doesn't exist anymore. So those are those two halves, right? The one half on the bottom is called structure. It's about power, tactics, strategy, decision-making processes. Also about roles and responsibilities and position schemes and career path, payment structures, rewards, right? How do you do the bonus? Then about processes, governance, measures, metrics, rules, policies. It will give you some sort of a soil or frame, right? Most of the organizations have it flexible enough. I mean, there is one way of working on a paper and there is a one way of working in the reality. And it's always have a space. The mindset, on the other hand, it's about people behavior. It's about how they take ownership, responsibility, self-organized, self-managed. It's also about our values and identity. Who are we? What are we really doing here? What is our organizational purpose? There's one goal together. And finally, trust. Do we trust each other? Do we collaborate? Do we help? Are we open? Are we transparent? Do we feel safe? Right? So those two are connected. Now, people are often asking me, like, where should they start? Right? And to be really honest, I don't know. It depends. But I usually start on a mindset size, mindset side. Why? Because the structure is almost always flexible enough. I like to change the people's behavior because when they change the behavior, then they actually demonstrate that those actual rules and processes and metrics are not needed anymore, right? We don't need them because we work on a different way. We have different issues, different things to be measured. So I like to start working on a mindset. But having said so, in a few organizations, a couple, we need to go to the structure and change it first. So there is again no right, no wrong, but be aware of those two parts. Be aware of that flexibility they create. But they can't go too far from each other. If you don't have the agile mindset good enough at a high enough level, and then you get rid of every positions and you say, hey guys, you're just self-organized. You do your best. There are no positions, no managers, nothing. Well, then you might create chaos because they're not ready for that, right? So they are all connected. You need to create a balance between those two halves. And I have another last one, by the way, query for you. This time, and I refresh the question for you now. Now, what are important aspects of your culture? So this time you can write a single keywords. I believe if you write the same keyword two people, it will become bigger and bigger and bigger. So you can do that as well. But let's see, what is your culture about? Well, I would like to, not anymore. Honesty and learning and trust. I would like to work in that organization. Still good, still very positive. So value creation, honesty, openness, team, learning, collaboration, excellence, control, openness, teamwork, power, empowerment, transparency, improvement. Nice. Safe place to fail. Value, delivery, hard work. Hey, you can see what my last group said, right? On top of your group, it was about customers, autonomy, service, listen to boss, and some other funny things, right? So, of course, if you do it in the meetups like that, you have a variety of labels. If you do that at in-house training, if you do it for your team, then it's really interesting because what people say about the culture might be something else than you think about it. Now, a few more tips about books, right? Those are the books which sort of help me to understand how to build the agile organization. So the first one is a tribal leadership. What those guys say, they did the research around different organizations, right? And they say there is always a major tribe, major mindset in that organization, right? They call it tribe. And they go through all those different things from life sucks, those guys who don't see light, like everything is just bad, right? To the guys in the second stage, like saying, my life sucks. I mean, you guys are lucky. You have your great jobs. You're living in Toronto, Denver, and all those wonderful places. But my life sucks, right? Because I'm stuck here in Prague, like this, right? Those other people are happy, but not me. And of course, it's not step-by-step process, right? It's a sort of linear thing. So on this side of a spectrum of my life sucks, it's like my life sucks because I don't have a job, right? Serious things. Over here of that spectrum, it says, you know, my life sucks because we don't have a good coffee machine in the company. And it's really bad, right? Still the same mindset, by the way, just a different level. Then the next one is, I'm great. And you're not, right? So, by the way, most of the managers in those very bossy type of organizations, those extra traditional ones, would be in I'm great because I'm a manager and you're just an employee. You're not that good, right? Like this. Very nice people, by the way. And no surprise, they usually mostly generate majority of the employees in my life sucks, right? Because my life sucks because I have an idiotic boss, right? But I am great because I'm boss. So that's on this side. On that side, it's actually a mantra of most of the traditional organizations because they actually want to show every single employee that they are great. That's the over specialization. I am great because I can make the best drawings on a meeting to visual facilitate. And I'm great because I can do the best design of our software. And I'm great because I just did a really successful marketing campaign, right? So they try to make every single employee feeling that they're great at something really tiny, expertise, but great at something. So that's a traditional word. Ugly, less ugly, really nice, by the way. And then we have this agile world starting with we. We're saying we are great. And again, on this side, it's we are a great team. But actually, those other teams are not that good. How many times I hear it? Like 1,000 times, right? They're competitive to each other. They don't help each other. Saying, no, we are this team. We don't help this. We don't have it in our backlog. We can't do it, right? And then on this side of a spectrum, this we are great is saying we are great, but those competitors, we need to be better than them, right? So that's already a quite agile space because the people manage to experience their own success. They live it. And then once they live it, they can actually let it go and say, I don't have to be the best in the universe. I can actually want to do something meaningful. So that whole shifts. By the way, you can't skip stages, right? In that mindset, you have to go through those. So if you realize your organization is a big corporation with majority of people in my life sucks, well then you better go to different traditional organization first where you actually allow everybody to see their own success before you be ready for saying, hey, we are all great, right? Finally, the last step is like life is great. And that one is very unique. Like the first one is like 2% of organizations, like prisons and mafias would have it as major. The last one, same thing, like 2% of organizations will have it as a major, like non-profit organizations, those with a strong purpose. So when you ask them, what is your competitor? They say, what do you mean? We don't have competitors. We deal with cancer, right? So you might have a kind of thoughts about where are we as a major tribe, as a major mindset in our organization. Are we individual or team oriented? Are we happy and proud on ourselves? Are we competitive or not that much? Are we individual competitive or not that much? Do we even see a light at the end of the tunnel? So this is one of those books which helped me to understand the mindset side of a culture. Then the other one, it was very popular in every agile conference about, I don't know, 5 years ago, reinventing organizations, speaking about those red, orange, and amber organizations are quite traditional with a fixed organizational structure, while we had those green and teal organizations with a dynamic structure. While the teal would be a very liquid structure, even while the green would be dynamic, but still very flexible. So we go from fixed to flexible. Again, I would recommend you to read it if you're interested about organizational structures and different types of organizations. What else do we have here? My last book to recommend is Turn the Ship Around. It's a good story from David Marquette, a captain on a US Navy submarine. He's a good speaker. He actually is not working with Navy anymore, but he's going around the world giving a keynote talks about his experience. He wrote this book. Again, I recommend you to read it, but the bottom line is that there are two models for leadership: the leader follower, so called. That's like a typical Navy captain on a submarine, right? You give an orders and the others following. The other one is a leader. And this entire book is showing how he actually turned the entire ship around to actually change the way how he leads this submarine. He actually realized he needs to change. because of different circumstances, but he has been struggling with a hard-coded hierarchy in their minds. So he said, there is a captain still. Captain has to decide. But we actually find a workaround around that. We say, as you guys are coming up with a suggestion, you're saying we are intended to do this. And then the higher officer is just about to say, yes, do it. So technically you give orders, but in the practice, they are leaders the same way as you are. So the question is always, how can you help people around you to become leaders? And that's the most difficult one, because first you need to change yourself. Until you're able to change your own understanding and everything around you, you can help people and support this weak culture, right? Because you feel it's about me, I have to tell them. But the biggest shift was when I realized actually I don't have to tell them. They're smart. They will figure it out. All I need to do is to trust them. But that was tough because on the specifically difficult situations, I can't stand up and tell them, hey guys, just do it this way. I have to give them a time. And that was painful at first. Now I'm actually enjoying it because it's great. They didn't rely on me, right? Just going by itself. We're pretty much at the end of this talk, right? So let me summarize the 3 tips. Agile is not your goal. It's just the best way, in my mind, how to achieve your goals. Second, leaders need to change first. It's all on you, guys. You are all the leaders, no matter which position you have. You're all the leaders. You need to change first. The organization will follow. And finally, your primary job is to help the other people around you to become leaders and support the weak culture. What can you do so they form a team? What can you do so they are self-organized? What can you do so they are better? So, few contacts on me. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, send me an email, get some of my books. And I guess that's it. Do you have any questions? There are some in the chat, maybe.
Thank you, Zuzi, for a great presentation.
Any questions? Can they speak
Hi,
up? They can, right?
hi. This is San, and I have a quick question on the uh, the Mentimeter when you were asking people to find out what's the value they associate, and I think hardly anybody selected learning, and I think one of the most important thing for organizations to continuously evolve is to learn from their own experiments. I wouldn't say mistake, but experiment. And when you are agreeing to experiment, and it goes towards the people who, I don't want to call them as leader, but those who are responsible for making decisions to bring the money. I don't know if I can find a better word to say. They don't sometimes support it. They just want minimum investment and maximum returns. So how can one go and convince
Mhm.
those, and again, I don't want to say, or okay, let me use the same traditional term, leaders, to, okay, you have to make others leader by way of giving them the resources. And in this case is the money. That means we are letting them, allowing them to be creative, which includes a big part of able to fail. So I can fail, but I'm trying something new. If I'm successful,
Mhm.
then you
So
get all the sweets to eat.
that's a good question, and it's different for every organization. But in general, the principle is you need to make a small steps, small things, so no one even care if you fail. So that's why I like so much Scrum because of a short time boxes. So if you fail one sprint, which is 1 week or 2 weeks, it doesn't really matter for the overall product, right? Of course, unless you do it sequentially, right? But if you fail one sprint, even if you fail it completely, but then you learn from it, it's not a big deal. And when I speak about it at the organizations at the beginning of their Scrum journey, they tell me about sprint. We can't fail sprints. I'm like, okay, you can't fail sprint, but can you fail to deliver one backlog item, one user story? Or what is the minimal thing you feel it's okay? Well, actually, if we do that small thing, no one notice. Yes, that's exactly where you need to learn and train your brain. Because we are, by the way, not looking for big improvements week from week. We are looking for tiny improvements. What is the one thing you want to make better next week, right? So start with small iterations, small, tiny things, baby steps. But step by step, start improving and start finding what is the highest impact. Make it safe to fail, safe to experiment, safe to learn. One of the most funniest experiments from one of my line of organization, they actually tend to say they are agile, but one of their experiments was lasting 2 years. It was still experiment, but they never say how they're gonna measure the success of that experiment. And after 2 years, they say, "Hey, we have this experiment, and we need to do something about it." After 2 years, well, that's of course a big success or failure, or whatever. But it's not an experiment; it's not small. So that's not what I'm speaking here. I'm speaking about tiny things. You can do the marketing campaigns, try to, invite people broadcast and see if it makes any change next time on this meetup. Or you can make all those backgrounds so people know who are you and remember by seeing that name. Maybe it will help, maybe not, right? Now, how do you know? You can always ask the first few people who join, why did you join, right? And maybe they are aware, maybe they are not. So it's hard to measure those experiments, but it should be such a small step. So it will not destroy you if it completely fail. And you can do 10 of those in a reasonable time.
Thank you. It's really, in fact, you spoke some of the best lines which I would be able to use in my own word in terms of, yes, do smaller, but keep measuring its success or failure, and continue to share the benefits of it. I thank you very much.
So
Yeah, hello, this is Brianna. I have a quick question for you. So you talked about earlier on how, the failure rate might be 2 and out of every 10 experiences or experiments. And for those who do the work, that might be fine, but how do you balance that when you are a shareholder driven organization that doesn't tolerate 80% of the experiments failing and will replace your executive board for lack of generating value?
Well, so first of all, I don't think you're living in a world, blue ocean kind of business, right? Where you really do just experiments because you have no clue what needs to be done, right? It's a blue ocean kind of thing. So in that case, I would expect shareholders to know they are in a blue ocean, right? But most of you would be working in some sort of established organizations where they still do experiments because they still don't know exactly, but it might be measured at given sort of thing, right? So we do informatic systems, for example. So that's given, right? Those informatic systems are for this and this and this segment. And there are those type of functionalities. And you do tiny experiments like, hey, does it make a difference if we do it like this or like that, right? Like a A/B testing, maybe. And of course, some of your ideas will sort out with a fast feedback loop as a really bad ideas, but you learn and you can invest them in somewhere else. But there are tiny experiments because you don't spend your entire day just by doing, should we do that? Or maybe this, right? It's not like that. But you're still doing those experiments, like saying, hey, does it make a difference if we make those buttons bigger? So I've been speaking with one, they've been doing e-shops. And about a year ago, they've been experimenting with these things like, what happened if we make some costs, like red cross saying there is a discount? but we make the original price much bigger with a big red crossing and the new price smaller. Will it make a difference? Are they going to buy it more? So those type of experiments are meaningful because in a very short time you can learn about the user's behavior. Are they buying more of those things or less, right? Because you haven't measured the previous things. So those type of experiments are healthy. And the shareholders would not be against them because one of those will work. And then, of course, you have maybe 10 times more people buying it and it will pay for the others. Make sense?
It does, and it doesn't. It's kind of hard to understand always what shareholders are really looking for, and they may understand that, but they may not necessarily care. And
so do you need to tell them, right, that you're doing experiments which will fail? Maybe you don't, right? Maybe you just speak about, we have at the end of months, you have a presentation to that board, right? So in a presentation, you tell them, well, we tried 10 different things. And by the way, those 2 worked. And here is a chart of successful, I don't know, leads. And here is a chart of money. And I don't think they will ever question that you did 10 different things because that's the impact, right?
I wish it were true. That would be enough.
It usually is if you have results with those guys.
Well, thank you for taking my question.
Okay. So I guess we have time for 1 or 2 more quick questions from Zuzi.
And thank you all for coming, by the way. Yes, please.
Hi, it's Wayne. I had an interesting question about your first company, where your experience when you first started out, and you talked to your old style manager, and he let you go with some of the new ideas. Whatever happened there? Did that work out?
It did actually, and we made it working. And about 2 years after I left that company, I started my own business. The new director who went to my place, he disliked Agile, he didn't like it, but so he has actually a big presentation with everyone in saying like, but Agile is gone, we do the PMO office and do it like everybody else. And I was really sad because they told me, but then you say you're leaving. However, I talked to them like, a couple months after, we went for lunch, my ex-colleagues, right? And so I tell them like, hey, so do you have the individual responsibility now? And all those PMO experts, etc. They say, no. Why should we? It's like, you told me last time. It's like, yeah, we didn't hear from him that much on that topic. So we just keep doing whatever we got used to. So that's what I really love on culture. It's a long live, unless someone else makes a really strong effort to change it again, right? It's possible, but you have to do it intentionally. This guy gave up. A next manager, take it for granted. I don't even know what he wanted because I never met him. And I wasn't that close with people anymore, so I don't really know the stories. I just know it sustained 3 different managers on the top after me, the same way as I created it, pretty much. And then it's gone because they went through some merge, and the mergers, they always change the culture in a way. So that was a big influence of that. So not anymore, but yes, it sustained for a long time.
Okay, we are at time. Thank you, Zuzi, for taking the time, coming and all the way from Prague and talking to us.
It was a short flight this time.
Yeah.
But I would love to be in Toronto next time. So when we can still travel, I love Toronto and some of the other places where you are all as well. Texas I've seen, and Colorado I've noticed before, etc. Those are on my favorite destinations. So thank you all for joining, and good luck with transforming your organizations into being more agile.
Thank you. And happy holidays to everyone, and happy new year. We are going to rejoin after the new year. We don't have anything else prior to that. So with all that being said, thank you again, Zuzi, and happy holidays and happy new year.